So in this video, we're going to talk about how do we multiply two binomials by each other. So basically what we're doing is we're distributing twice. We're distributing the x to the 6, the x to the x, and the x to the 6, and the 5 to the x, and the 5 to the 6. But we're going to talk about a certain order called FOIL, because next class when we go backwards, this is how we're going to do it. So first of all, the first thing that I'm going to do is multiply my first term, so x times x, and you get x squared. Now, the outer and the inner are really important because when you multiply these two are going to combine to get you your middle term. So like, for example, my outer is just, I'm multiplying the x now by 6. So you get 6x. And then my inner is going to be 5 times x, which is 5x. These two terms are going to combine because they both have an x in them. So 5 plus 6 is 11x. And then the last thing that we're going to do is my last two terms, so 5 times 6, which is going to be 30. And so if you notice, these two binomials multiply to be a trinomial. Okay, so let's try it again. So again, we're going to do my first, so 3x times x, that's going to be 3x squared. Now my outer in this case, and I'm just going to keep that down just so I have enough space to write my outer and my inner. So my outer in this case is going to be 3x times negative 2. So just be careful with that sign there. So that's going to be negative 6x. My inner is going to be 1x. So when they combine a 1 and a negative 6x, we're going to get a negative 5x. And then my last is going to be 1 times negative 2, which is just negative 2. Okay. So now let's go ahead and do FOIL for these. All right, so again, my first is going to be x times x, which is x squared. My outer in this case is 3x. My inner is negative 3x. So something really special happens when you combine your outer and your inner here. Basically, they cancel out, and so you're left with 0, so there is no middle term here. And then negative 3 times 3 is going to become a negative 9. So this is a pretty special time, a special thing that happens. And basically, whenever you have the same two terms but a different sign, this is what's going to happen, because your outer and your inner are going to be the same thing but a different sign, and they're going to cancel. So we call this the difference of two perfect squares, because you have a perfect square and a perfect square, right? So 9 is a perfect square because 3 times 3 gives you 9. And you're subtracting this. Okay, and then let's do something like this. A very common misconception is that basically all you have to do is kind of like binomials and go ahead and just distribute the exponent. But notice what we're doing. We're doing x minus 5 times itself. So if you remember where that rule of power to power came from, you wouldn't do that. So here we have to do FOIL. So my first is x times x, which is x squared. And then my outer in this case is negative 5x. Your inner is also negative 5x. So they don't cancel each other out because they don't have different signs. And so we would just put it together and have negative 10x. And then my last term here is negative 5 times negative 5, which is a positive 25. There is a shortcut way to get from here to here. Basically, if you notice, x times x is just x squared, so you just square the first. And in order to get your last, you square the last, so negative 5 squared is positive 25. In order to get to this middle term, well, I just multiplied x and negative 5 twice, right? And combined them. So x times negative 5 is just negative 5x, and then if you multiply that by 2, you get negative 10x. So that's just kind of the shortcut, and I'll just write what the rule is. So if you had a minus b squared, well, this just comes out to be, right, a squared minus 2ab plus b squared. Well, you don't need parentheses around that. Okay, so very similarly, right, if you had, I'll write it here, so if you had a plus b squared, Then again, to get the first term, you would multiply a and a, so you get a squared. The middle term is going to be a times b twice, so you get a 2ab plus b squared, which is just b squared. So that's kind of like a shortcut way to get to what the trinomial is right away when you have something being squared by itself. Okay, so that's about it. So I hope that you've taken